From Manila to the globe, this is World Newsfeed, bringing you the biggest stories shaping our times. Good morning, I'm Raine Musñgi. Let's dive into the headlines making an impact across the world. It's the eve of the U.S. presidential elections, and rivals Donald Trump and Kamala Harris are scrambling for an edge in what could be the closest ever race to the White House. In the swing state of Pennsylvania, Republican Trump vowed to invoke the Alien Enemies Act of 1798 to launch what he calls the largest deportation program of criminals in American history if he wins.
And I'm hereby calling for the death penalty for any migrant that kills an American citizen or a law enforcement officer.
Trump's other stops include Pittsburgh and Michigan. He will then return to Palm Beach, Florida, to vote and await the election results.
The ball's in our court. You know, as they say in athletics, the ball is in our court. All we have to do is get out and vote, and we walk away with the greatest political event in history, but much more important, it's going to be the event that saves our country. We are going to fire Kamala, and we are going to save America.
Well, Democratic Vice President Kamala Harris campaigned in Pennsylvania as well, where she predicted victory over Donald Trump. Harris also promising to be a president for all Americans as she rallied the Puerto Rican community, outraged by insults from a comedian at a Trump rally in New York last week. She got a little help from rapper Fat Joe, who is of Puerto Rican and Cuban descent.
The other day in Madison Square Garden, that was no joke, ladies and gentlemen. That was no joke. And it was filled with so much hate. Hatred of Jewish people, hatred of black people, carving watermelons, calling Puerto Rico an island of garbage. My Latinos, where is your pride?
One day left, and we need to finish this strong and get this done. So let's get out the vote. Let's reach out to all of our folks in the next 24 hours, family and friends and classmates and neighbors and co-workers. And as we do, I ask, let us please be intentional about building community.
Harris barnstormed several cities in Pennsylvania, but she made sure to stop by a Puerto Rican cafe in Reading. There, the vice president spoke with the owner and greeted diners. Harris was joined by Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Governor Josh Shapiro. Just hours away from Election Day, one presidential analyst warns what could be tremendous dangers ahead regarding possible outcomes of the tight presidential elections. One of these dangers, Donald Trump pushing Republican governors and legislators to steal the electoral vote. He also says if Trump or Kamala Harris would neither get the required 270 electoral votes, then it could come down to the U.S. House of Representatives picking the next president.
We have tremendous dangers ahead. It may all work out, but it's actually a signal to us that we need to have constitutional revision, and of course we'll never have that. We will face this every 4 years.
The race to the White House already in the home stretch, from the economy to immigration to the war in Gaza. Here's what's at stake for Americans in this presidential election.
The November 5th presidential election between Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump is in the home stretch as the nominees hit the campaign trail along with their running mates, Democratic Minnesota Governor Tim Walz and Republican Ohio Senator J.D. Vance. With the two offering starkly different visions for America, here's what's at stake in this election. Polls indicate that the two candidates are essentially tied, with voters trusting Trump slightly more on economic policies.
It's with me when our life was better with Trump. Yeah! Our life was so much better with Trump.
Much of the current Democratic administration has been hamstrung by high inflation, but price rises have recently cooled, and other economic indicators like stock markets are at near all-time highs.
I keep hearing some things are coming down, but I haven't seen it.
Both candidates have talked up their record in government in recent months while criticizing their opponents' economic plans. Harris has vowed to chart a new way forward with a focus on lowering prices for Americans.
Together, we will build a future where we build what I call an opportunity economy. So every American has the opportunity to own a home, to build wealth, to start a small business.
She's promised tax cuts for 100 million Americans, while raising taxes on the richest and to bring down housing prices. While Trump has regularly vowed to eliminate inflation.
Starting on day one, we will end inflation and make America affordable again.
The former president has also vowed a 10 to 20% tariff on imports and a 60% rate on Chinese goods. The Republicans' protectionist economic message has focused on riling his largely white, working-class supporters by demonizing immigrants. The explosive issue of migration is what Trump hopes will help him win in November.
And you want Kamala? She opened the border?
The U.S. government has struggled to manage its southern border with Mexico for years. Now the former president is doubling down on harsh rhetoric, accusing migrants of poisoning American blood.
We are going to start the largest mass deportation in the history of our country because we have no choice. It's not sustainable.
Polls show immigration remains a major vulnerability for Harris, with border crossings having risen to record highs at the end of 2023 under President Joe Biden.
I reject the false choice that suggests we must either choose between securing our border or creating a system of immigration that is safe, orderly, and humane. We can and we must do both.
Not only could the election have an impact on immigration, but also the fate of women's reproductive freedoms. In 10 states, a referendum on abortion rights will also be on the ballot, after the procedure was banned or restricted across much of the country, following a landmark Supreme Court ruling. In response, the Democratic Party has positioned themselves as the party of reproductive rights. And Harris has made access to abortion a central theme of her campaign.
And let us agree, and I know we do, one does not have to abandon their faith or deeply held beliefs to agree. The government should not be telling her what to do with her body.
Trump has consistently denied Democratic claims that he plans to pursue a national ban on abortion, despite pressure from conservative scholars and anti-abortion activists.
At the end of the day, this is all about the will of the people. You must follow your heart or, in many cases, your religion or your faith.
While Harris has gained support from many progressives at home on her stance on abortion rights, Harris's policies abroad could stand in her way of becoming president as she continues to uphold Biden's support for key U.S. ally Israel.
And may God bless the great alliance between Israel and America forever.
She has spoken little about the escalation in the Middle East as fears surrounding an all-out war intensify.
I can no longer in good conscience vote for the lesser of two evils.
Over the past year, Trump has claimed that the deadly October assault on Israel by Hamas would never have happened if he were in office.
I'm here today to tell the Jewish American community that this ugly tide of anti-Semitic, pro-Hamas bigotry and hate will be turned back and crushed starting at noon on January 20th, 2025.
Trump has hardly helped to cool rising tensions in the Middle East. Instead, he's threatened to blow Iran to smithereens after U.S. intelligence warned of threats from Tehran against his life. Democrats and a long list of former senior Trump presidential staff have sounded the alarm about a second Trump term.
They do not support Donald Trump coming back to the presidency, and I think that speaks volumes.
Some have warned of a repeat of the chaos that followed the 2020 election if he doesn't win this time around.
Of course there'll be a peaceful transfer, and there was last time, and there'll be a peaceful transfer. I just hope we're going to have honest elections, that's all, okay?
When we fight, we win!
Fight, fight, fight.
Coming up, we'll tell you everything you need to know about how the next U.S. president will be elected. This is World Newsfeed here on BNC. Welcome back. The Electoral College, swing states, the winner-take-all rule, and early voting. With just hours before the polls open, here's everything you need to know about how the next U.S. president will be elected.
Future is always worth fighting for. And that's the fight we are in right now, a fight for America's future.
Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump are hurtling towards their November 5th showdown in one of the closest elections in modern American history. But how does the country decide who gets to replace President Joe Biden? Here is everything you need to know about how the results of the election will be determined.
November 5th, 2024 will be called Liberation Day in America. We're going to be liberated.
The United States does not vote directly for a presidential candidate. Instead, Americans vote for one of 538 members of the Electoral College who designate the winner on their behalf. Each state is given a certain number of electors based on population. California, the most populous state, has 54, and Wyoming, the least populous state, has just 3. Candidates need at least 270 of the 538 Electoral College votes to win. States have a winner-take-all system that awards all of the electoral votes to whoever wins the popular vote in each state, aside from 2 exceptions, Nebraska and Maine, which split their electoral votes. Under the winner-take-all system, a candidate can be chosen by the Electoral College even if they receive fewer popular votes at the national level. This is what happened in the 2016 election, when Trump won against Hillary Clinton, even though she received nearly 3 million more votes nationally.
I know many of you are deeply disappointed about the results of the election.
Since most states usually lean either Democratic or Republican, the election tends to be decided by hotly contested swing states that have a history of alternating between the 2 parties. This year, there are 7 such battlegrounds: Pennsylvania, Georgia, Michigan, Wisconsin, Nevada, Arizona, and North Carolina. Swing states account for 93, or nearly 1/5 of the total number of Electoral College votes. In a razor-thin election, just a handful of votes in any of those states could decide the outcome. On November 5th, when polling stations open, many voters will have already cast their ballot. Both Republicans and Democrats have been encouraged to vote early, in an aim to improve turnout and reduce crowds on the big day. In 2020, more than 100 million Americans cast their ballot in advance. Since his 2020 defeat, Donald Trump has launched an assault on the credibility of mail-in voting, claiming without evidence that the process was rigged against him. The first unofficial results could be announced as soon as polls close on the West Coast at 8 p.m. local time. Typically, American news media will declare the winner on election night, based on projections. However, in 2020, it took 4 days to call the election. Official results could take days or even longer due to the amount of mail-in ballots. Not until each state has certified its vote count will the country know for certain who will be the 47th President of the United States.
As Donald Trump pursues a second stint at the White House, 3,000 miles away in his mother's birth country of Scotland, he's building a new golf course that is dividing opinion among locals. For some, it will be symbolic of the Republican candidate's adoration for his ancestral home and a driver of economic investment, but for others, it's of little benefit to the community. AFP TV gives us an exclusive look at Trump's second golf course It's set to open in 2025.
Donald Trump is having another swing at running for president. But it's not just America he's vowing to make great again. The presidential candidate, who is half Scottish, is also making his mark on Scotland. This is his soon-to-be-completed second golf course on the northeast coast. The finishing touches are being made to the new course, part of plans to honour Trump's mother, Mary McLeod, who was born and raised on the Isle of Lewis.
We are well on the way to completion, and we're excited to unveil that in 2025. This is a spectacular property, and it's deeply personal to the Trump family, who are intimately involved, and we've been blessed to have it here in the northeast of Scotland.
But not everyone is a fan. The building of the first golf course meant that the lower part of these sand dunes lost their status as a site of special scientific interest. For local lawmaker Maggie Chapman from the Scottish Greens, the development doesn't help the community nor the environment.
That first golf course, you literally rode roughshod over quite a lot of the dune system. There's been nothing positive, no wealth of jobs, no really top quality homes provided, and I think the fear is that any further developments in this area will be just more of the same.
Trump's team claim to be using cutting-edge techniques to ensure the course is environmentally friendly, using the natural undulations of the land. Further down the beach, local opinion is divided.
I have no issues at all about it. I think, if anything, it's bringing business into Aberdeenshire, especially just now when we need all the business we can get.
I mean, I'm a golfer myself, and I went to see what it would cost to play at Trump's course, and it's just a playground for the rich, and certainly doesn't represent what I think Scotland's all about.
David Milne's home is on the edge of Trump International's Aberdeenshire site. Over the last 15 years, he and his fellow neighbours have been fighting to stop their land being swallowed up by plans to create a buffer zone around the golf site. Milne has seen trees planted and fences erected on the perimeter of his property, and at one stage was even threatened with compulsory purchase.
The first turned up in 2006, and I wasn't 100% against it. It is difficult, but at the same time, we really didn't have a choice. This was our home. This was a house we literally built with our own blood, sweat and tears. And I'm not prepared to give that up, especially not for some arrogant half-wit who thinks he can walk in and do what the hell he likes and everyone will just rush in on bended knee with forelock tugged and say, "Yes, sir." Well, I'm sorry, I'm not. I'm just not doing it.
Trump's Aberdeenshire development employs a few hundred locals, but has not created the expected thousands of jobs, most of which were supposed to come from a hotel. That idea has been put to bed, but Trump International maintains that building accommodation is still part of their plan.
And the world has changed since our plans were formed a great many years ago, and the economy and the market has evolved. And we've identified that the beautiful lodges that we have on site are very site-specific, and we intend to develop more of those.
By the time the new course opens to golfers, the owner himself could be teeing off at the White House.
Up next on World Newsfeed, North Korea fires yet another ballistic missile hours before the U.S. presidential elections open. Stay with us here on BNC. And we're back. You're still on the World Newsfeed. Israel risks facing restrictions on U.S. military aid if the humanitarian situation in Gaza does not improve. Washington says not enough aid is reaching civilians in the Palestinian enclave.
We have serious concerns about the implications of it being fully implemented, as well as our concerns about the underlying humanitarian situation in Gaza even before Israel passed this legislation that relates to the inability of a sufficient number of trucks to get into Gaza and the inability of humanitarian workers for a variety of reasons to be able to deliver that aid to places inside Gaza, to the people that need it.
Israel says Hamas militants have been hijacking aid shipments in Gaza. Iran vows to use all available means to respond to Israeli attacks on its military installations. And Tehran warns the response would be clear and decisive. Iran also condemns the U.S. military presence in the Middle East.
As long as the region faces the presence of foreign troops, especially those of the United States, it will continue to suffer from problems and tension. However, this will not affect Iran's resolve and determination to defend itself. Furthermore, it should now be clearer than ever to countries in the region that they need to support each other to promote the resolution of regional issues and safeguard security and stability in the region.
Israel is at war with Iran-backed armed groups Hamas in Gaza, Hezbollah in Lebanon, and Houthi rebels in Yemen. From the Middle East to the Korean Peninsula, tensions remain high as North Korea launches yet another ballistic missile. South Korea says it was fired towards the sea east of the region. Just last week, Pyongyang tested a new solid-fuel intercontinental ballistic missile, or ICBM, that's believed to be capable of reaching the United States. U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris has been in practically every spotlight since she took over the baton of the Democratic Party. And now she graces the cover of a comic book. The 22-page political power, Kamala Harris, Road to the White House, was released in digital and print formats late last month. It aims to bring Harris's story to life, capture the energy of her DNC speech, and address the questions skeptics have raised. The vice president's running mate, Tim Walz, also gets his own comic book, offering a look into his life from his tenure as a congressman to governor of Minnesota. That's all for now. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Raine Musñgi. Catch up with us again tomorrow when we bring you the world in 30 minutes only on World Newsfeed.